Welcome to Hauntcore Vault. If you are ready for horror tales, you are in the right place. If you are new, please subscribe to the channel. I'd love to know where are you from and what time you are watching. Let's begin. It was close to midnight when I finally pulled off into a dimly lit gravel lot behind an old half-shuttered service station. One of those spots you only use when you're out of hours and running on fumes. No cameras, no lights worth a damn, and not another soul in sight. I'd driven longer than I should have that day, and the hum of the road was still in my bones. I did a quick check around the truck, made sure the doors were locked tight, then climbed into the sleeper and passed out hard. Sometime in the middle of the night, I jolted awake. I didn't hear glass breaking or alarms, just a subtle, mechanical click. Quiet. Deliberate. My instincts kicked in. I stayed still, barely breathing, listening. Then I felt it. The truck rocked. Not wind. Something heavy. Someone was outside, and they were trying the handle. That's when adrenaline lit me up like a fuse. I slipped into the driver's seat, not bothering to flip on the lights. I just fired the engine and slammed my foot on the accelerator. The rig roared to life, the whole thing lurching forward like a beast waking up. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw a figure in dark clothing stumble back from the passenger side door and take off into the night, disappearing between the trees at the edge of the lot. I sat there for a long while, engine idling, eyes scanning every shadow. My hands were shaking. Whoever it was, they knew what they were doing. Quiet, precise. They'd waited for the deadest part of the night. Eventually, I climbed out to check the damage, half expecting to find scratches or a busted lock. Instead, I saw it. A single bloody handprint, smeared across the door handle, fingers spread wide like they were reaching in desperation, or marking something. No break-in, no note, just that. I called it in, reported it, but there were no cameras in the lot. Cops said they'd keep an eye out, which we all know means nothing in places like that. I never did find out who it was or where the blood came from, but I stopped parking in unlit lots after that. And now, before I shut my eyes at night, I always check the doors. Twice. Because sometimes the jackers don't just want your truck. They want you. It was just another long haul, nothing fancy. A standard dry van loaded with pallet freight headed west. I pulled into a well-lit truck stop just after midnight, tucked the rig into a back corner of the lot, and grabbed a hot shower before crawling into the sleeper for some rest. It was one of those newer lots. Gated, well-maintained, security cameras mounted high on every pole. Felt safe enough. I even locked the kingpin, just out of habit. Sometime before dawn, I woke up with a weird feeling. Not panic, just off. The kind of gut twinge long haulers learn to listen to. I brushed it off, climbed into the cab, and fired her up. And that's when I looked in the mirror and froze. The trailer was gone. Gone, not unhooked. Gone. Vanished. I jumped out so fast I nearly tripped. The kingpin lock was lying on the ground like someone had twisted it off and dropped it in the dirt. No tire marks, no drag lines, just an empty patch where 53 feet of trailer and cargo had been sitting 6 hours earlier. I ran into the truck stop, already dialing dispatch. Management pulled the security footage, or tried to. Every single camera aimed at the back lot glitched. Just static from 12:42 a.m. to 3:09 a.m., like someone had hit pause on reality. The lot gates? Still locked from the inside. No sign of forced entry, no alarms, no witnesses. Cops showed up, shrugged. Probably a pro job, maybe inside work, maybe someone cloned your truck's info. Sure, except my trailer was tagged with GPS, and the GPS pinged once, exactly
2:57 a.m., 6 miles north of the truck stop. A place called Morrow Creek, an abandoned industrial park, shut down for years. When they checked the ping the next morning, it was gone. Not offline, erased. No history, like the trailer never existed. Insurance paid out, company took the hit. No one ever found the freight, the trailer, or a single bolt of it. But I still think about that glitch. The silence, the clean lot, the way the air felt that morning. Too quiet. Too empty. And sometimes, on long, lonely stretches of road, I check my mirrors, and for half a second, I swear I see that same trailer, just barely visible, drifting along in the distance. Then I blink, and it's gone.
The fog rolled in so thick that night, it felt like driving through wet concrete. My headlights only reached about 20 feet before vanishing into a pale, endless wall. I had the CB on, more out of habit than anything. Channel 19, crackling softly. The occasional faint hiss of static keeping me company. Then, through the static, I heard it. A voice. Not clear, but human, low, choppy, breaking through the noise like it was coming from underwater. I leaned in, adjusted the squelch. Help! Anyone! Please! I froze. The signal was weak, but the tone wasn't just interference, it was panic. I tried to reply. This is southbound hauler on 94. Come again? Nothing. Just static. Then a different voice, higher and urgent, came through, overlapping the first. They're not gone. They're still... The rest dissolved into white noise. I figured it was just some local kids screwing around on the airwaves, or maybe a skip signal bouncing off the fog. But the deeper I drove into that mist, the louder the voices became. Not clearer, just closer, if that makes sense. Dozens of them, murmuring, pleading, overlapping one another in a tangle of words that didn't belong to any one conversation. And that's when the buildings started to appear. At first, just shapes. Faded storefronts, gas pumps half sunk into the ground, a weather-beaten diner sign swinging in the fog. The map said nothing about a town here. No lights, no movement, just abandoned streets swallowed by mist. The CB hissed and screamed all at once. "Help us! Please! Truck! Don't stop! Don't!" Then silence. Everything stopped. The fog thinned as I left the cluster of buildings behind. My radio went dead. Not just quiet, dead. Like someone had yanked the plug. A few miles later, the CB flickered back to life. Crystal clear, empty channel. Next day, I mentioned it to a guy at a diner down the road. He looked at me like he'd heard it all before. "You must have gone through Milford." Town washed out in the flood back in '74. Whole place went under in one night. They say you can still hear him on the radio when the fog's thick enough. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Now, whenever the weather starts to turn and the fog creeps in, I keep the CB off. Some voices on the road, you don't want to hear twice. It was somewhere past midnight, and I was parked in a quiet pull-off off Route 12, not an official stop, just one of those gravel shoulder areas wide enough to tuck in a rig and catch a few hours of sleep. The heater was on low, the cab nice and warm, and the road had been dead quiet for over an hour. Nothing but the ticking of the engine as it cooled and the occasional rustle of wind through the trees. I just started to drift off when something changed. It was subtle at first, a pressure in the air, like a shift in the atmosphere. Then the temperature dropped, fast. I'm talking real cold. I could see my breath. I sat up, confused. The heater was still humming, the windows sealed tight, but the cold was sharp, biting, and it was focused.
I glanced toward the foot of the sleeper, and that's when I saw it. A figure. Pale, still, translucent. It stood no more than 6 feet from me, almost blending into the shadows, but not quite. It had form, shape, presence. I couldn't see its face clearly, just the outline of sunken eyes and the impression of long, brittle limbs. It wasn't moving, just standing there, staring. My chest locked up. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I just sat frozen, heart pounding, sweat turning icy on my skin. Then I slammed my hand against the dome light. The cab lit up in an instant, and the figure was gone. No sound, no movement, just gone. But the cold, it didn't leave. The temperature in that cab never returned to normal. Not for days. Even with the heat cranked, the sleeper stayed cold as a meat locker. Eventually, I took the rig into a shop just to check if something mechanical was going on. Heater checked out fine. Insulation? No problem. Nothing wrong. But the guy who looked it over kept rubbing his arms and said, "Feels off in here, like a walk-in freezer." I didn't tell him what I saw. Didn't tell anyone for a long time. But now and then, on long, quiet nights, that cold creeps back in, like it's riding with me. And sometimes, if I wake up too fast, heart racing, I swear I see the faint shape of something standing at the foot of my bunk, waiting.
I rolled into a quiet parking lot just off the interstate around midnight, desperate for a nap, the kind of place where the only light comes from a flickering street lamp and the silence presses heavy like a fog. I locked up, hit the bunk, and closed my eyes. Minutes later, I heard it, a low, scratching noise. At first, I thought maybe a raccoon or something trying to get under the rig, but then came the pounding, thump, 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 sharp and relentless like a dozen fists hammering on steel. My heart shot up in my throat. I grabbed my flashlight and peeked out the window, but the lot was empty, or so it looked. Then, from the corner of my eye, I caught movement, shadows flickering just beyond the edge of the lot, barely visible in the weak light. A faint guttural whispering drifted on the wind, impossible to make out but chilling as hell. I sat frozen, gripping the door handle, waiting. Suddenly, the pounding switched to the driver's side, harder, louder, right on my door. I slammed my hand on the horn, loud, ear-shattering, and the pounding stopped like someone hit mute on a nightmare. But just as the silence settled, I caught a glimpse through the fogged-up window, a dark shape darting between the trees, too fast, too smooth to be human. Morning came slow, and when it did, I stepped out to inspect the damage. The door was shredded with deep claw marks, gouges, jagged and raw, like a wild animal had tried to rip through metal. But there were no tracks, no broken branches, nothing but the eerie silence of a place where shadows came alive. I don't know who or what was out there that night, but I'll never forget the way the darkness moved, like he was hunting. From now on, I only stop where there's light and people, because some nights the things lurking in the shadows don't just want to scare you, they want in. I had pulled off at this rundown truck stop just after midnight, the kind of place where the neon sign flickers and the buzz of the fluorescent lights feels like it's barely holding on. I didn't want to hang around long. Just a quick pit stop to wash up and get back on the road. The bathroom was empty and smelled like stale smoke and something sour I couldn't place. I turned on the sink, the water sputtering before it ran steady, and started washing my hands. That's when it happened. A cold, heavy grip grabbed my wrist, like ice had suddenly wrapped around my skin. I jerked my head up, spinning around, but the room was empty. No one. No shadow, no movement, just me and the flickering light buzzing overhead. I could feel the chill lingering on my skin. And then I noticed the mirror.
It was fogged up from the humidity, but something was written there. Don't stop here. The words looked like they'd been traced by a cold, trembling finger, jagged and hurried. I rubbed at the glass, but the message wouldn't go away. I didn't wait to see if anything else might happen. I grabbed my gear and got the hell out of there, heart pounding like a drum. Even now, when I think about that night, I get a chill. Some places, some spirits, they don't want you around. And sometimes they make sure you know it.